Let's move on to our big topic of the week, though, and group chat, where we kind of dig into one particular story a little bit. And I think we should talk a little bit about Leslie Jones.
Yes.
Before we get too far into this, I want to acknowledge that we are going to be talking about, harassment and issues relating specifically to being a minority and being a woman. And we are 3 dudes who are going to be discussing sexism.
Yes.
So we completely acknowledge that there are voices missing from this conversation that we would like to have. Unfortunately, it was just not possible to make that happen today. We also acknowledge that me and Nate are white men, and that is further damaging.
I could not tell, guys.
I don't know if you could tell.
Yeah.
Just the way the light is bouncing off of my face and whiting out some of the cameras. But that being said, we want to have we want to talk about this because this is very important, and we want to try and address this in a reasonable and intelligent manner and a sensitive manner. Let's start, though, at the most basic level, and let's just kind of recap the story so far. Nate, since you reported the news yesterday, do you want to kind of tell us the basics here, the basic facts?
Yeah, so yesterday on Leslie Jones' personal website, photos that were stolen from her iCloud account, presumably, were posted on. So her site was hacked. Photos were put up of her revealing photographs, personal photographs, as well as, I believe, images of her passport and driver's license. So, not just photographs, but personal information were posted directly to her website. It was quickly taken down, but enough people saw this that it was confirmed that this was her info, her pictures. I don't believe at this point she has said anything about it, nor have any publicists. But this comes about a month after she was trolled extensively on Twitter. Tons of racist remarks were sent her way. She quit for a few days, and then Twitter banned Milo Yiannopoulos. I don't know if I'm saying his name right.
Yeah, it doesn't
I honestly
really
don't
matter.
care.
Nope.
But yeah, he was banned finally from Twitter after several years of just abusive, horrible behavior. It seemed like he kind of stirred up the hornet's nest, sent them after Leslie Jones, and that was apparently the last straw for Twitter to finally ban him. She came back after that. She was actually very supportive of Gabby Douglas, who was also dealing with a lot of online harassment at the time. And then, this
Well,
happens.
she came back in the Olympics, and she was very excited about the Olympics.
Yes.
And she got to go down there and actually do the Olympics too. So, yeah, lots of joy for her coming back.
Right.
Yeah.
And then this happens.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's take one quick second. Who is Milo Yiannopoulos? Sure.
One of the biggest trolls on the internet.
Yeah,
that's
other than a raging asshole. Who is he?
Sure. Yeah.
A terrible human being.
He is a garbage person. Let's start with that as a base level.
That should just be his title: garbage person, Milo Yiannopoulos.
Yeah.
He works at, or I believe he still works at the conservative news site Breitbart.
Yep.
Sorry, conservative news site in
Thank
parentheses.
you. Yes,
I'm not.
yes.
We're not hedging on that one at all. We're not even going to pretend because they are not news.
Massive air quotes happening for listeners who aren't watching.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can call me liberal scum if you want, but they're not a news site. They are. I don't even know what they are.
And he's just posted, on Twitter,
Yeah.
many times various, anti-women screeds. Basically, he just seems to hate women, and has a large following of people who also hate women, and he stirs them up and directs them at different people. Leslie Jones being the most recent target.
And he doesn't just have. I mean, he has a particularly strong history of stirring up misogynist hate, but he in general just kind of seems to like to place himself at the center of alt-right controversy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
He's I guess a hero figure as much as that scene can have one.
Sure. Yeah. that makes sense. I mean, he does seem like somebody who's always desperate for attention and the ability. He's sort of like the Joker in a way. He likes to create anarchy, and it's not great.
I believe he said that he thanks Twitter for banning him because it made him even more famous.
Yep. Made him a martyr. Yeah.
That being said, though, he's not directly responsible, or at least we don't have evidence that he's directly responsible for this hack of Leslie Jones, but it's kind of hard not to see the two incidences related.
Sure. I mean, it's we don't know much about the hackers yet, so there are a lot of details we're still waiting on. But the whole idea of like this group that he's kind of whipped up into a frenzy to attack her in the first place, only because she was starring in a Ghostbusters movie, and it's weird how they focused on her and not the other, not the other stars of the film.
Let's back
too.
up. I mean, it's not because she was in Ghostbusters. It's because she's an outspoken black woman.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
I think
outspoken
so.
black woman in a female-led franchise. I think his
It's a
calculus,
perfect storm for her.
his
Right now.
calculus is really ingenious too, because like you get these people who are already annoyed about this thing, and you give them a target to hate, and that's kind of how I know these people work. The people who kind of whip up the crowd frenzy like that. But yeah, so those people. I wouldn't be surprised if some of those hackers were kind of part of that early group, and this almost seems like the hack almost seems like in response to her joy. Like that's what it is. It's like she can't have nice things, and that's what they're trying to prevent and remind her, that you're not actually special, which is the worst. Yeah.
I was thinking about the celebrity hack that happened almost exactly 2 years ago, in which Jennifer Lawrence and dozens of other celebrities had their pictures leaked. Those were not as publicly shared, right? Like those were one person hacked those, and
Those were all over the place.
released them. They were, but they originally they originated on like Reddit or
Yes,
similar
yeah.
places.
Yeah.
This was someone who took this stuff and put it right on the front
Yeah.
of Leslie Jones' website.
Yeah.
So this is more about
It's a personal
embarrassing-
attack. Yeah.
It's about embarrassing her and attacking her as opposed to just we want to see naked celebrities.
Right.
And I think part of the evidence for that though is not just that it was put on her site, but that they posted her passport and her driver's license, which is basically daring people to like steal her identity as well.
Right.
Basically to
find out
make
where
her
she
life
lives,
hell.
or-
Yeah. In general, make her life hell. Yeah.
Has Milo Yiannopoulos,
Garbage human.
done this to any other celebrities though? I can't think of any off the top of my head. I know he's
Yeah.
done this to other people, but I
Yeah.
can't think of any other celebrities.
He's always picked choice people to kind of fight against, the SJWs that his crowd would like to, rally against. But yeah, I can't think of another celebrity.
I feel like it's more targeted in a general sense rather than at one individual.
Yeah. But she is also, though, even if it's not from him, hardly the only celebrity who has been sort of victims of harassment and hacks like this, as you're saying. And one of the good things that has come out of stuff like this, and it's hard to say that anything good has come out of this, is that it has seemed to have spurred some conversation, though, around harassment on Twitter and Instagram and social networking. And they are kind of stepping up their game a little bit, it seems.
Good. I mean, I don't know if it spurred the conversation. I think it forced these companies to not be able to avoid it anymore. So that's it. The conversation was happening. It's been happening for years, and it's been ignored. Just yesterday, we reported that a sports journalist was banned from Twitter for sharing GIFs of the Olympics, GIFs he found on Reddit. Permabanned. Gone. Within after a couple
Took
days,
like half an hour or something
Yeah.
before they locked his account, and then
Yeah.
he was unable to get it opened up.
and that's what Twitter responds to. It's what the complaints of its big moneyed advertisers or partners, and not the complaints of its users. Like Milo's been doing stuff like this for years, and there are other people like him on Twitter still.
Right. The fact
And they
that
haven't done
the
anything.
fact that it took Milo years to get banned,
Yep.
but this this sports writer got banned in the span of a couple days because he posted some harmless GIFs. How are these things equal?
Yeah.
Like, where's Twitter's priorities here? It's ridiculous.
And only because the Olympics said, no GIFs allowed of the games at all. So he was going against
Just
their
pull the
wishes.
post down.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
Yep.
I mean, that's something that a lot of these companies, though, have always done. It's they put that focus more on things that are also, to be clear, usually a little bit more cut and dry and a little bit easier to enforce. A copyright infringement is usually a much clearer case, a much easier to enforce thing. A record company can go to Google and say, hey, this video on YouTube is using this song. They didn't license it properly. You need to pull it. Whereas I think with the harassment stuff, it's a little bit more of a gray area, and I think Milo Garbage Human has said this before, and I think to an extent he's right, is that he says, basically, I'm not doing this. He is feeding people.
He is like a Simpsons character. He's like Mr. Burns. I'm not, creating environmental waste, but I have this whole system set up to make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
So, I mean, and that makes it a little bit harder to enforce. And I mean, I guess one of the questions is, to what extent does Twitter have a responsibility to enforce that? Like, should they be policing people who are not explicitly and actively engaging in bullying and harassment in a way that, kind of skirts things?
It might not always need to go to policing or banning people either. Like just like basic tools to protect your users, right? If you're a verified Twitter user, you have a nice quality filter in your mentions. But even if you have that for a celebrity or something, it's not a great filter. Like bad things still get through, and it still cuts out good things. But
They are rolling that out to all users though now.
Oh yeah, so that's a thing. But the thing is, like, that tool has been around for years. They could work on improving it. They could work on giving you keyword filters or something, like basic protections, things that we've had in the online community for a while now too. Like I've been on the internet for a while, guys. Like I remember IRC chats. I remember bulletin board rooms where the mods would like be there, and it's like if someone's being a jerk, they're gone. And that's it.
I think there's just something with the volume of people and messages being posted that it's like it's this exponential kind of growth thing at this point. And I mean, I'll admit, I don't know technically how you keep up with this, but I think that the starting point is you need to be more responsive to what your users are telling you.
As you grow as a service, you need people to take care of those users.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like these users are your money makers. They're the ones viewing the ads that are allowing you to stay alive. So, give them some basic protections.
Yeah.
There was one other connection that I made kind of looking at this, and it's one of the other big stories of the week is that Gawker is no more, basically. Right. And they were driven out of business.
Gawker.com.
Gawker.com, yeah. Gawker as a collective of websites will continue to exist under the Univision umbrella, but Gawker.com as an specific website and gossip thing will no longer exist. And they were put out of business basically by a collection of lawsuits funded by Peter Thiel or Thiel or whatever.
I'm having a hard time
Garbage
with
billionaire Peter Thiel.
Yeah, garbage billionaire Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
And garbage wrestler Hulk Hogan.
That was true since the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I think a lot of us in the media, myself included, were a little upset by Gawker being shut down basically because of this leaked sex tape of Hulk Hogan. And removing Peter Thiel's questionable personal vendetta against Gawker and his sort of shadowy quest to kill them as a property, what makes what Gawker did different from some of these other celebrity hacks and leaks, though?
That's a good question.
Yeah, really difficult one. I mean, personally, I've always sort of come down the side of that story they reported was suspect. I can see why an individual would be upset having that posted. I think that their defense saying that, Hulk Hogan has talked about his sex life extensively doesn't quite pass muster for me personally. Sure. I understand there's a lot of room for disagreement on that. That's just how I've always felt. Would I think that Gawker deserves to be sued out of existence for that? No, they made a mistake. They should have taken down the post, I think, when they were requested to by the person who was in the video. That seems like basic kind of human decency to me.
And this sort of thing happened again, too. Like, they outed something about, like, a random executive a couple years ago. And then it was just some weird personal stuff. And I think they took the post down, and they also apologized. And then some editors left because of the apology and everything. But it does seem like Gawker started to recognize, like, if we push too far in this way, like, it didn't serve a public good, really. Like, it just outed this one dude who didn't really matter.
And it makes it harder for them to do their bigger job. And obviously now they don't do it at all. So,
but that's a good point, Terrence. Like, I guess it's not that different, but also as a media organization, like, that's their job has been to, like, report on things and gossip, and they've suffered because of that too. They've been punished in the past. They've had to go through all sorts of issues. I wasn't a big Gawker fan, but I don't think that they deserve this at all. That's not a great sign for media sites in general, especially one that, they were one of the few independent sites out there. And that's incredibly rare these days.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you in principle, at least, that they didn't deserve to be sued out of existence. But it is one of these things that I struggle with personally, at least when I start thinking about it, because it didn't serve a public good. And, I do feel like there needed to be some consequences. There needed to be some sort of action, whether legal or otherwise, in the same way that there is going to be for the hacker who did this to Leslie Jones if they ever find them.
Hopefully.
And
I believe the hacker from Celebgate 2 years ago is in jail now. I wanna
yes,
say. Yeah.
more than one person went
Right.
to jail over that. And that should happen. And, I think when you put a media property in the place of random hacker, it becomes a slightly touchier issue for a lot of us, especially in the media. But I do think that honestly, probably a lot of people out there would probably see it in exactly the same way and see a lot of similarities there.
Yeah. What's interesting too is a lot of people I know who Gawker had focused on and had attacked over the years, because Gawker's been around for a while. They were one of the original blogs. Yep. Even those people are like, yeah, they hated Gawker and the coverage they did of it, but they also didn't want to see Gawker go like this. Like, if your enemies are saying, hey, maybe that's going too far, that's probably a sign.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, like, most of what they did was reported at least fairly. They maybe didn't have, like, it may be hard for these people who are getting reported on that, they don't want to see their names show up, but at least it wasn't, like, stealing information and posting, like, private videos. Like, most of what they did seemed to be above board for the most part, even if you disagreed with it.
Yeah.
The Hogan thing is a little dicier, but
That's what that is the big questionable one, I think.
I mean, I think if you're getting into, nude images of anyone, celebrity or otherwise, what public good does this serve aside from sort of embarrassment or, harassing?
Right.
Yeah.
It's questionable.
I mean, we're in a weird environment now too. Like, I think the standing of WikiLeaks has fallen considerabely over the past year, just because they've been so flagrant in terms of like the data they've been putting out, unvetted, getting people's personal information out there, and potentially harming people in the process too. And I think that's it. It's that harm that really makes it all the more worse for me.
Yeah. I think that's as good a place as any to end it. I think that kind of sums it up pretty nicely. Nate, Devindra, thank you for joining me. Where can the fine listeners and viewers find you on the internet?
If you really want to, my Twitter handle is @NateIngram.
You assume that nobody wants to?
It's not pretty.
You'll find the Charlie Brown avatar there for him.
Devindra, where can the fine people find you?
I'm @Devindra on Twitter, and I also podcast about movies and TV at /film.com.
There you go. And I am @Terrence O'Brien on Twitter. Lots of E's, no A's. But don't follow me if you expect tweets about technology. I mostly complain about baseball and politics.
How are the Mets doing this year?
Pretty terribly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to my desk after this and cry a little bit about it.
All right.
And then also, please feel free to reach out to any of the three of us, or reach out to us at Engadget.com, at Engadget on Twitter, not .com, just at Engadget. Or you can email us at podcasts@Engadget.com. And please send us your feedback, your comments, your questions, your concerns.
Your gifts.
Your gifts.
Yes.
Please send us all the gifts. We want to make this show enjoyable for you, and unless you tell us what you like and don't like, we can't make the changes to make you happy. So thanks for joining us. Don't miss next week. But before we go, I want to leave you with the comment of the week, which comes from Bob19844. Wow, that's going to affect tens of people.
Thinking emoji. Yes.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Oh, yeah.